There, folks. Today in science, we're going to be looking at the topics of glaciers and water streams and the effect of large bodies of water on climate. Now, I've posted on D2L our regular PowerPoint where there are definitions and images, but in order to bring the concepts home, we're going to be looking at a story, a classic beloved children's story that deals with exactly these topics, and also the very relevant topics of friendship and courage. I'm speaking, of course, about Winnie the Pooh, the classic tale, and tales, I should say, by A.A. Milne. This one is called Stand by Pooh. I hope you like it as much as I did growing up. Now, in case you're not familiar with Winnie the Pooh, we'll have an introduction to some of the characters here. So right at the front, we have got Winnie the Pooh and his pal Piglet. We have Christopher Robin there, their human master. So all these characters were based on stuffed animals that A.A. Milne's son, Christopher Robin, owned. We have Eeyore right here, the very sad donkey. We've got one of the most popular characters is the bouncy, fun-loving Tigger. We've got Rabbit, very practical, gardens, and Kanga and Roo right here at the back. And, oh, up here, don't forget, we have Owl. Owl is very wise and learned. Okay. Stand by Pooh. So fortunately, I'm able to read it based on the image that I see in the screen of the book. So we're all good. That way you can see the nice, beautiful pictures. Pictures by E.H. Shepard. So let's give him his due right there. Okay, so Stand by Pooh. Now Piglet was sitting along the side of a lake, a beautiful, shiny lake in the 100-acre wood with a new friend of his. This friend looked a little something like we would consider to be an elephant, but it wasn't. It was one of the dreaded heffalumps. The heffalumps would often haunt our heroes in their dreams, along with the woozles, who were kind of like weasels. But this heffalump was not to be feared. This heffalump was very kind. Piglet asked the heffalump, "Excuse me, Mr. Heffalump, what's it like to be a heffalump?" And the heffalump said, "Well, my friend, it's kind of like being a lump, except that we're more heffa." Yes. You see, heffalumps, their answers didn't tend to make a lot of sense. That's probably why people were frightened of them. And just then, in the distance, Piglet saw his good friends Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, we could say, if we're being formal, Tigger and Eeyore, all coming toward them. For you see, they had all made plans to meet by the side of the lake. "Well, my dear Piglet, I hope you've brought some honey for our picnic." Winnie the Pooh was suddenly shocked when he took sight of the heffalump. "Piglet, are you associating with a heffalump? We don't accept their kind here." And Piglet didn't know what to say. He had been hoping, he had made friends with this heffalump, and he was hoping that his pals would all come to see what a good pal this heffalump was. Before he could say anything, though, the heffalump spoke up, and he said, "I know where I'm not wanted," and sadly he drooped his trunk and disappeared into the distance. "That was a close call there, Pooh boy," said Tigger. I don't know what we would have done with that heffalump. It's a good thing they didn't have us outnumbered, or we could be goners." Eeyore said, "He's probably going to get his friends to come and bring backup and give us all a good beatdown." Piglet said, Pooh, it's not like that. That heffalump was very kind." And Pooh said, "Well, Piglet, you're going to have to choose between that heffalump and your real friends." Now, Piglet, this was too much for him to take in. To abandon his 3 lifelong friends, he couldn't, so he just stopped saying anything. So it was really quite an awkward start to their lakeside retreat when all of a sudden they saw something in the air swooping toward them. "It's Owl! It's our good friend Owl," said Winnie the Pooh. "I hope he's bringing some honey." The thing you need to know about Winnie the Pooh is this character really likes honey. Okay, so Owl swooped and landed. And they were all excited to see. Owl seemed to be like he had something very important to say. "Hello, friends. I do believe that there's something you're going to want to hear about, something that never happens in the 100-acre wood. For you see, I've just been back from the valley of the Glacier, and I've seen something terrible." "Oh my," said Winnie the Pooh. "What could that be, Owl?" And Owl said, "I'll tell you. I found a body frozen in the ice. It could have been there for who knows how many long years. Who knows? Who knows? And with that, Owl began going on about some totally unrelated story about his great uncle's minor surgery. And now that's why they didn't really like hanging out with Owl that much. But none of them paid any attention. They were all so absorbed with the idea about who could this be stuck up in this glacier? What could have happened? That eventually Owl was finished. And Owl, now the thing is, Owl had a reputation for being very wise, as you know, the wise old owl. That's, of course, because owls are known for eating dead mice, which, of course, is a pretty wise thing to do. So Owl checked his wristwatch and said, "Oh dear, I believe it's time for me to go and eat more dead mice." And so with that, Owl bid them a fond farewell. They gave Owl kind of a lukewarm farewell. And as they started walking around the lake, and Winnie the Pooh said, "Oh dear, that sounds like a very strange thing. We don't see many bodies turn up in the 100-acre wood." Eeyore said, "It's probably another tourist. I just want to try and get our economy going again." Tigger said, "I don't want to go anywhere near that. That's some scary stuff." And now Piglet, though, thought a little bit differently. Piglet said, "Well, Pooh, there could be. What if that person is still alive and needs our help? They could just be very frozen very badly." And this gave them all thought. And Tigger, he always liked to fancy himself being considerably braver than he really was. And he said, "Well, Piglet, my old buddy, we should go and have a rescue mission." And Eeyore said, "Well, if you're going to have a rescue mission, you're probably going to get lost yourselves. So I should probably come with you, just so someone is there to help you." And Winnie the Pooh still had his doubts, but he said, "You know what? There could be honey up there. What if whoever is there rewards us with honey?" And with that, they perched themselves on the edge of a fence to discuss their plan. And they decided the best way to find the Valley of the Glaciers was to follow the little stream that came from this lake. That was a good way where they wouldn't get lost. Looking at the lake, though, they couldn't help but feel a little bit worried. What would they find? And the lake itself possessed a lot of dangers. And Winnie the Pooh said, "I'm afraid of getting too close to that lake. You know, I once heard that there are waves, that there are tides, that during high tide, that the level of the water rises, and in low tide, the level of the water falls. What if, dear Piglet, during high tide, we should be carried away?" But now, Eeyore said, "Now, Pooh, we know when high tide is. High tide is when the moon is closer, and that the pull of the gravity from the moon to our planet is lifting the level of the water higher. It's really quite fascinating." "Well, that's a relief, Eeyore, if we know when the tides will happen. Surely nothing more bad could happen from the lake. I only see a few waves caused by minor forces, such as the circular movement of water, water particles, that is," said Pooh. But Tigger all of a sudden got a dull, glazed look in his eye, as if Pooh had just reopened a wound that he had long been trying to forget. "What's wrong, Tigger?" asked Piglet. "Well, I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to get everyone all down. But I think it's time I told you the real reason why I'm the only Tigger." They all looked toward him, frightened by what he might reveal. "Well, a long time ago, you see, all us Tiggers lived by this very lake. And one day, though, there was an earthquake below at the lake, below the surface of the water. It was a tsunami. And this giant wave came and wiped out all the Tiggers. And that's why I'm the only one. It's the wonderful thing about Tiggers." They realized, wow, this tsunami was a powerful force, and that it had to be definitely considered and feared on their journey. But knowing now the effect of tides, waves, and tsunamis, they felt ready to begin their journey down the edge of the stream. Tigger, his spirits immediately picked up. He said, "Don't worry, guys. I'm on top of this. I'll be in charge. After all, finding frozen bodies is what we Tiggers do best." So, walking along the stream, they noticed that at certain points, the stream really picked up as the water was flowing more, particularly when it joined with another stream. And as this water was going faster at certain points, it was actually it was wearing away the soil at the edge of the stream bank. And Pooh said, "Piglet, do you notice that this stream is not clear anymore as it's getting faster?" And Piglet said, "Why, Pooh? That's because it's carrying dirt, it's carrying sediment load, and it's eroding the side of the riverbank." And the thing you have to know about, you may have noticed, the Piglet actually has a bit of a stutter, and Tigger has a little bit of a lisp. They didn't actually have speech therapists for stuffed animals back at this point, but I've always believed that, and I think this may be the case, that A.A. Milne, he actually gave these characters some speech difficulties, because a lot of young children actually have lisps and stutters and other problems with their speech. So this kind of makes them feel that it's okay. It's okay if you don't talk like everyone else. And they realized at points in the stream, as they continued walking down, where the stream went a little bit more slowly, that it would actually deposit mounds of earth, and that was deposition. So that was it was pretty fascinating. Eventually, though, they wondered, when could the stream end? When could the stream end, dear Piglet? And Piglet said, "Well, I think eventually it will reach the ocean, and when it does, it will form a delta. It will have a deposit. It'll be like a fan-like shape where there's a lot of silt and dirt and plant life that is deposited there. It'll be very rich for farming and agricultural purposes." So that was they were all very thrilled to learn about the stream profiles. As they continued walking along, though, toward the valley of the glacier, they saw a set of hills in the distance. They had never been past these hills. These hills were on the other side of the 100-acre wood, and they were very afraid. What should happen if their journey to the valley of the glaciers took them beyond these hills? They decided that it would be good to consult with Christopher Robin, who seemed to know just about everything, because he was the only one who had anything representing or approximating a formal education. So Eeyore said, "Let's go talk to Christopher Robin." They knocked on his door. Christopher Robin answered. He was wearing shorts, even though it was actually quite cold outside, because he was, just like many young people, wanting to be cool. I think he was trying to impress his girlfriend or something. Christopher Robin said, "Eeyore, what a delightful surprise. What are you doing here?" Eeyore said, "Well, Christopher Robin, we're wondering about these hills. Why is it that they're there? What's on the other side? And will the soil be as wet, and will there be as much precipitation and rain as we have on the side of the 100-acre woods?" And Christopher Robin explained to Eeyore. He said, "Oh no, dear Eeyore. Actually, the other side of the hills is much drier, because those hills, you see, act to create a rain shadow. Most of the precipitation will fall on the 100-acre wood. Hitting those hills and those mountains is actually an obstacle for it. Much like the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia cause Alberta to get very little rain. Most of it falls in the mountains." "Wow, thank you," said Eeyore. We're going to go off to find a dead body now." Christopher Robin, before he could even collect his thoughts, Eeyore was already out of earshot. He was shocked to think that his stuffed animals would be going on such a mission, but he knew not to question their wisdom. He would never question their wisdom. So on they continued, and Eeyore couldn't help but wonder. He said, I wonder if those mountains do anything else. I wonder if living by lakes and oceans does anything else for our climate." And all of a sudden then, who should appear but Owl again. Owl swooped down. He was really quite the eavesdropper. He had excellent hearing because he needed to be able to hear the mice. And so Owl told them, "Oh, what a wonderful question that you had." He said, "I've been to the other side, and I can tell you that not only is there less rain there, but it also gets more extremes on the other side of the hills. Extremes of hot and cold temperatures. For it is there, without the regulating effect of water, which holds more heat, it cools down much faster. But also, water doesn't heat up as quickly as the land, so it also doesn't have the extremes of heat in places that have water. We're very lucky to live in a place with such large lakes as the 100-acre woods." "Why, thank you, Owl. That's very kind of you to share. Very kind of you indeed." So, walking along, continuing along the stream, they now found themselves in the valley of the Glacier. Now, the glacier had retreated, but thousands of years ago in the Ice Age, it went much further. And they noticed all kinds of bizarre landforms that they hadn't noticed outside of the valley of the Glacier. In fact, they noticed these long mounds of earth that were piled up. And Pooh, being the prejudiced creature he was, immediately suspected the woozles and the heffalumps. I do believe this must have been a prank. This must be a prank. The work of those dastardly heffalumps and woozles. They must have been digging up the dirt and just putting it in piles here. But now Piglet, who had been riding on the back of Eeyore and reading a pamphlet all about glaciers, said, well, no, Pooh. As glaciers advance in colder weather and climates, they will push rocks and cause gouging of the land to create all kinds of formations and holes in the ground, like kettle lakes. And he pointed over to a little pond that was over in the middle of nowhere. It was not connected to the stream they'd been following. He said that was formed by the ice. Ice, as the glacier was retreating, melted. It was left behind and melted to form a kettle lake. And as for this pile of dirt we see, that's called a moraine. And this dirt was pushed by the glacier as it was advancing and left behind as the glacier retreated. Wow, that's fascinating, Piglet. I guess there are some works of evil that aren't done by heffalumps and woozles. And so they realized that, wow, these glaciers were powerful things, capable of totally reshaping the environment. Piglet also pointed out to them that some moraines, which eventually were covered with more dirt and soil, eventually formed eskers. And it almost looked like a snake crawling under a carpet because it was like a long, winding pile of dirt covered by grass. It was very remarkable. Finally now, they'd come to the valley of the Glacier. And it was here in the valley of the Glacier where they began to realize that with the hills, they were now right at the foot of these hills too. And they couldn't help but wonder if the glaciers and the streams coming from the glaciers all came toward the 100-acre wood, where did all the stuff go the other direction? On the other side of the hills, where did the glacier melt? Where did that water go? And Tigger said, well, Pooh boy, I actually was thinking about this a lot, and I have a theory. Would you like to hear my theory, Pooh boy? And Winnie the Pooh said, yes, Tigger, do enlighten me. And Tigger said, well, Pooh boy, these hills, actually, I believe we could call these a continental divide. And everything on one side of the hill will be carried by gravity toward what's known as, let's call it a watershed, draining out toward the 100-acre wood. And everything on the other side of the hills, it's running down that side, and it'll be a different watershed on the other side. Kind of like, said Tigger, how the continental divide of the Rocky Mountains, on the side that's west of the Rockies, drains out to the Pacific, and the stuff on the east, if you're in southern Alberta, eventually will drain to the Hudson Bay. Wow, Tigger, said Winnie the Pooh, that sounds like a wonderful theory. I wonder if it's true. I will have to check a PowerPoint at some point in order to confirm that. They were amazed by the power of gravity and mountains to completely separate the way that different rivers and stream systems were going. And the idea that in some areas with the rain shadow, how in the 100-acre wood, as you can see, sometimes they experienced catastrophic biblical-like flooding. Whereas on the other side, there were regular droughts because of that rain shadow, just that thin stretch of hills there. It was remarkable. But now they were into the glacier. And they started trudging their way up the snow, and they were getting very afraid. I'm just a very small animal, said Piglet. And Tigger, whose courage tended to fade as quickly as it arrived, said, well, I guess we can turn back. We got pretty close. We got further than most people do. I can tell Roo all about it, my buddy Roo. But Winnie the Pooh had this beautiful idea that whoever was in there, if there was someone to be saved, might reward them with a great big pot of honey. And he said, no, my friends, we must continue. That honey must be ours. It must be ours. And he looked distantly up as the valley of the glacier started to wind up into the hills where the frozen block of ice was. And Eeyore said, well, we've gone this far, we may as well continue. So they began to trudge their way up, and turning corner after corner. It was getting very, very cold. They huddled together for warmth, and all of a sudden it was there. Owl's story was not just make-believe. It was true. They saw the body, and looking closer, it was frozen and encased in ice. They recognized it. It was the body of Walt Disney, frozen for 60-plus years in ice. Well, Piglet, it looks like we better start digging. And they all pulled out ice picks, which they conveniently carried underneath their clothing. And they began to dig. And eventually they managed to break out the block of ice where Walt Disney was. Tigger, who knew first aid, said, let me check for a pulse. And he checked, and he said, he's still alive. We got to get him back to our house and save him. So they carried this frozen Walt Disney all the way down. They continued their journey down out of the glacier, where they put him safely and warmly in one of the chairs in Winnie the Pooh's home. And it was there that suddenly Walt Disney's eyes opened. But there was something unnatural about them. Something unnatural indeed, for Walt Disney's eyes glowed with a demonic fire. The kind that 1,000 demons might unleash upon the gates of hell being opened to the larger world. And he looked about the room, and then his eyes fixed on Pooh, and he said, you have displeased me with your greed. You are in need of atonement, a sacrifice. Your life will be forfeit. And with that he reached a gnarled, twisted hand toward Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh said, no, Mr. Disney, please don't. There must be some other way. Walt Disney stopped for a moment, thought for a second, and then the beloved children's animator spoke. He said, if you are willing to make a sacrifice, if one of your friends is willing to step in for you, then I shall accept their request. And no one said anything. Everyone was too afraid. And Winnie the Pooh said, well, please, take Piglet instead. And with that, Walt Disney turned his eyes toward Piglet and said, this sacrifice will be acceptable. Piglet was terrified. No, I'm too young. There were so many things I wanted to do. I wanted to start my own investing firm. Just then, the door opened up. That's the sound doors made. And in who should appear? But in walked the heffalump that Winnie the Pooh had so coldly dismissed at the beginning of our tale. I will not let my friend Piglet come to harm. Take me instead, said the heffalump. Walt Disney looked at the heffalump, and he said, your sacrifice is acceptable. And with that, both Walt Disney and the heffalump disappeared in a burst of smoke and flame. Piglet began to cry a tear of pigginess. My friend. Tigger said, well, maybe that heffalump wasn't so bad. He was willing to sacrifice himself for you, Piglet. And Eeyore said, yeah, it's too bad. We learned that he wasn't so bad. Too late. And Winnie the Pooh, he didn't know what to say. He had been so cruel toward the heffalump. He didn't want to admit his mistake. He said, well, I'm sure that heffalump didn't know what he was getting into when he made the offer, dear Piglet. And no one really paid Pooh much attention, though, because they were all really quite traumatized by having this demonic Walt Disney just take this heffalump from midair. It was really quite the supernatural event. You can't imagine what they would have gone through. So the months passed by, and eventually the pain began to ease for Piglet, but he still missed his friend, the heffalump. They'd only just begun to start this cherished friendship. As for Pooh, he began to feel what you could call survivor's guilt, and he would spend a lot of time walking along by the river. And so he would consider, and he looked deeply into the stream that they had followed on the way to find Walt Disney. And he noticed the stream was getting muddier and muddier. And he felt that just like the stream was carrying away the sediment from the earth, that so too was time carrying away the prejudice that he felt toward the heffalump from his heart. He knew what he had to do. And so he went to his friend Christopher Robin, and he said, Christopher, I'm going away. There's a journey, a quest I must undertake. But on this quest you may not come with me, and neither may my friends. Goodbye, dear friend. Goodbye forever. Christopher Robin said, oh, silly old bear. So along the way, Winnie the Pooh said there's no time to waste. He got into an umbrella, to carry him. He was going to use his umbrella as a boat to go down the stream and take him back up to the valley of the glacier. So in no time at all, he was there, it seemed like, because he had a mission. I think you all know what his mission was. He went up to the glacier, and if you don't, well, then please continue listening to the story. And he came to the glacier. He got out of his umbrella, and he began to climb up the lonely trail up through the snowy hill of the glacier. And there, sure enough, he found Walt Disney prancing around. Walt Disney was actually not moving too much. He was prancing a little bit, but he was waiting to freeze again. He wanted to freeze himself so that he could wake up in the future thousands of years from now. So he was kind of irritated that Winnie the Pooh disturbed him from his refreezing process. "Pooh, why are you here? You are lucky to have survived our first encounter." "Well, Mr. Disney," Winnie the Pooh said, "if it's not too much trouble, I would like to take the place of that heffalump. It's not right that he should have to suffer for my own prejudices. He never even got to fully enjoy the friendship of our companionship in the 100-acre wood." And Walt Disney said, "Are you sure, Pooh? Once you do this, you know you can't go back." And Winnie the Pooh said, "I'm sure. I've eaten one last big pot of honey and I'm ready for this." And with that, the heffalump, the little sad heffalump, walked out from an ice cave and said, "Thank you. I'm glad that we can be friends after all." And Winnie the Pooh kind of smiled sadly and said, "Yes, even if it was just for a very brief time." And with that, Winnie the Pooh and Walt Disney once again vanished. But before they did, Walt Disney left a piece of paper on the ground. And the heffalump couldn't read, but he said, this could be important. He picked up the piece of paper, and he walked and trudged all the way back to the 100-acre wood, where who should he happen to meet but Piglet, Eeyore, Tigger, and Christopher Robin. "Hey, it's that heffalump who saved us back there with Walt Disney," said Tigger. And, "What's that? Hello, friend heffalump," said Piglet. "What's that you have in your hand?" And they handed it to Christopher Robin, who was the only one among them who could read, other than Owl. But they thought, we really don't have 6 hours to kill in a conversation with Owl. Christopher Robin read the piece of paper. Sure enough, it was a coupon for a free teddy bear at the toy store. And so Christopher Robin said, "Well, I guess there's no replacing Pooh, but it's the best we can do, so let's go use it. It's what Walt Disney would have wanted." So with that, Christopher Robin and his friends went to the nearest toy store, recalling fondly along the way the many stories they had of Pooh dropping various objects off the bridge into the river. Actually, the police had some questions about that too, but now that Pooh is a missing person, they really closed the case. So they went to the toy store, and there, on the shelf, they saw a bear that looked suspiciously familiar. In fact, it was a dead ringer for Winnie the Pooh, but it wasn't moving. It wasn't a talking bear like they were all talking animals. So but as Christopher Robin took the bear from the shelf and gave the coupon to the store clerk, all of a sudden, the teddy bear's eyes opened up. Eeyore flipped over and jumped out into a river out of sheer shock that this happened, which was the most energy that Eeyore had actually ever shown since he was a competitor in the 1988 Summer Olympics. He would have actually made it, except this guy Ben Johnson actually managed to beat him in the qualification rounds. And sure enough, this talking bear began to speak. He said, "Oh, yes, I'm back. I'm glad that you got the coupon. My soul has now inhabited this new shell, and I'm back with you, the same as I ever was, as Winnie the Pooh. Let's go get some honey." And with that, they realized that it was a test this whole time to see if Winnie the Pooh would place friendship above honey. And from then on, Winnie the Pooh knew not to judge a heffalump by the way it looked, but by the content of its character. And that is the story of Stand By Pooh. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did when I was a young child, and please do check out the PowerPoint on D2L. Until next time, TTFN, ta-ta for now.